Welcome to Simply Walk the Talk. Our bodies and minds adapt to what we do most of the time. If you want to change your body and mind, you must change what it is you do most of the time. This podcast explores all things health, wellness, fitness, lifestyle, and biohacking. Stay tuned as we explore various thoughts, methods, and experiences from a multitude of conversations between our interesting guests and experts through many fields of work. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Simply walk the talk. Simply walk the talk.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Simply Walk the Talk. I am your host, JoshuaJHolland, and today we have Mr. Forrest Smith on the show. Forrest is the CEO of Kineon Labs and has a 20-year history of building successful startups in tech hardware. He is an entrepreneurial optimist and passionate about health, wellness, and advancing technology to help others. Forrest speaks, reads, and writes fluent Chinese and has spent his adult life building amazing products around innovative supply chain. He grew up playing competitive sports in Atlanta and regularly, as in very regularly, participates in rugby matches and trains CrossFit, which ultimately led him to develop Kineon Labs Move Plus, a modular targeted laser therapy device for neuromuscular pain and inflammation. Wow. Mr. Forrest Smith, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Josh. It's always great to be here.
Yeah, man. So that was take two of that because we did all of that earlier, and then I had maintenance come and knock on the door. But as it goes in this world of technology, and speaking of technology, let's kind of dive into your background about how you got into what you're doing today, because a few people who follow closely what I do have heard me talk about this Move Plus device, and a lot of my listeners and followers are very comfortable with this term, photobiomodulation. But here you are in this space in which you've really created something like revolutionary, I think. So let's talk about how we even got there, and let's take it from there.
I'd love to. So I guess it starts with kind of my background has been I spent almost 20 years in China building tech companies there in the middle of the supply chain, and I think my first step into kind of photobiomodulation was my last company or two companies ago was a solid state lighting and controls business where we spent a lot of time in the supply chain for um, LEDs, but also going all the way back up the supply chain to, for any company you're building, having the information is kind of the most powerful piece of the puzzle. And so we try to do full dives on the entire technology, not just kind of the pieces that we're using. And so with the LEDs and lasers, we went back up to the epitaxy fabs and spent a lot of time going in and understanding how these are built and how it's a very interesting process, and I won't go too far down the rabbit hole with it, but it's they do use for LEDs in particular, they used these devices called metal organic vapor chemical vapor deposition machines, which is essentially you have a substrate and then you grow semiconductors on it, and you use these gaseous metals to grow these structures, and it's really interesting if you go into the kind of biochemistry of it. But it tickled my nerd and my tech interest fancy. So we spent a lot of time going deep on both that and laser technology. And about 2 or 3 years after I sold, or after my LED business was acquired, you started seeing more clinical literature. I spent a lot of time in medical literature, mostly trying to stay in shape and stay as functional and mobile as I can. And I started seeing this term photobiomodulation become the trials around photobiomodulation had been there for some time. But you see trials around a number of things, whether it's magnets or ultrasound or whatever. What happened at that point in time, though, is that these trials started becoming more effective. And so the outcomes were
Could you explain trials to the people who
sure.
don't understand?
So typically with different types of technology like this, the researchers in the medical space will go put together what starts mostly with animal models, is what they call it, and so they will, make a hypothesis that this treatment modality, in this case, light or photobiomodulation, will make these different changes from a physiological standpoint, and then they'll go arrange a full trial around this. Again, most of the time it starts with mice with this type of treatment, and you'll test the idea that is this so with photobiomodulation. Some of the ones we saw early were with they're trying to parse. The scientists are trying and the researchers are trying to parse what are the underlying mechanisms that make this functional, and so they make a hypothesis and they go test this on mice. And then what typically happens is if you see effective tests at an animal model level, then it will progress to human models, and that's what's happened with photobiomodulation over the years. And when you have an early interest in it, so with the early interest, there were both positive and negative outcomes, and so that was interesting to me because usually a treatment modality, a technology either works or it doesn't. So when you see something where they haven't teased out what's making it not work and
Hmm.
what's making it work, then there's some fun to go have with kind of unraveling this and digging into the mystery of that. And so that's how I kind of got into the research side of it. Um, and it occurred to me, having researched into it and having found that these models, these clinical trials were trending towards mostly positive because what we found was what made them negative outcomes in the first place was dosing incorrectly. And so once we understand the dosing model and can start kind of dialing that in and optimizing it, the science from that standpoint was started to see more and more positive outcomes in these trials. And what occurred to me in reading these trials, though, is that a lot of the literature, the physiologist and medical side of the research was very divorced from the technology side of the research. So the guys who knew the lasers, and the guys who knew the body, but they were kind of using different terms for kind of describing these things. And because they were using different terms and different metrics, they were missing each other. And so
Right.
that's where we found the opportunity for, we understand lasers and LEDs and solid state light emitting. We understand how to build models for how these photons disperse through tissue. Um, which is kind of the two pieces of this that you need, and we understand the physiological outcome of just of kind of delivering the level of photons to the tissue that's most beneficial. So with this background, it seems like there's a gap or an opportunity for us to be able to go provide a product that what we found at the time when we started talking about doing the first products was there were very good medical level products, very good clinical level products, but they started at $15,000 to $20,000, and you have to plug them into a wall, and you can't use them, you can't travel with them. There's a lot of things that are going to present particularly $15,000 presents a huge amount of friction that
Right.
most people aren't going to overcome to go use these kind of treatments. But the medical literature is showing that this is more effective than drugs for pain relief. This is way more effective than drugs for inflammation relief. This is something where you don't have the side effects of cardiovascular disease, increased risk. You don't have the side effects of liver damage. You don't have the side effects of stomach endothelial tissue damage that you have with the common gold standard pills that people are taking, Tylenol, Aleve,
Yeah.
Advil. They're just not good for you from an overall health standpoint. So they can help you block the pain signal short term, but they don't really deal with the underlying issues, and they have really costly effects long term from a health standpoint. So our goal with the company, which is developed over time, our mission with the company is to improve as effectively as we can the quality of life for the largest number of people we can. And $15,000 devices don't do that. And then on one side you had the clinical devices that were $15,000 that were effective but just couldn't be adopted broadly. And the other side you have things like panels where Panels just
Mm,
aren't used in the medical literature because it's not a good dosing modality. You can't if you're standing in front of a red light panel and you move 2 inches back or 2 inches closer, your dose changes drastically. And
right.
we kind of use the analogy of you don't go to a doctor and get a prescription for you get a prescription for one pill. You don't get a prescription to shake the bottle of pills 3 feet in front of your face and hope something correct falls in. So you want to dial in the dosage as effectively as possible. So that's I think kind of the background where we found the sweet spot of what we could deliver and the impact that we could make for people's lives. And we've gone in and built a team from an engineering standpoint and from a supply chain standpoint to do exactly that. So that's I think kind of the long elevator pitch of how it came to be.
Well, thank you for explaining that because it as I get to know you more in this format, I think everyone else gets a chance to kind of see the type of people that we attract whenever we, put out in the world what we want, right? And so I was very gracious to be able to get connected to you because I see that we have a lot of crossover and synergy in what we do and what we like to talk about, which is why we're here. And interestingly enough, as we speak, like we were supposed to record last week, but today and we rescheduled to today, and I happen to be in the midst of recovering from a hernia repair procedure, which is I think very poignant and relevant for this conversation because, um,
100%.
to your point about the medications that are out there and things like that, like you know I knew for a fact that I would be able to you know recover without the use, or I hoped to not have to take any Percocet or hydrocodone or anything like that. I know that there are situations in which that is very necessary for people, but there's a huge cost to our body, and the potential to become addicted, I mean, is a huge problem in America. And then it's like, okay, I did have to take some Tylenol just because I didn't want to be the hero here. I want to be without pain. But it right when we were getting on the call, you were like, oh, whenever you feel ready, you should be using the red light. And I'm like, absolutely using the red light. And in the past I would have, I do have the panels, because I was like everyone else, getting hip to the trend of these panels, and they look cool, and they sell well because it looks like you can set them up in your home, and and the marketing behind it is wonderful, it's great, and there are some benefits. But when I came across Flex Beam and I came across the Move Plus, that's where I'm like, aha, there's something different here with the research, there's something different here with the dosing, and I can believe in the research because of the fact that of what you just explained. And I'm sure we'll go deeper into that. But let's talk about one of the things I'm facing now for post trauma, or post, because a surgery is a trauma.
Mhm.
What would that look like? And what would you say would be a protocol? And obviously this is not medical advice, but like in your experience, like what have you seen to have the best outcomes with using Move Plus?
Absolutely. I would say so. Just to marry it back to the literature, because we typically that's where we start with our protocols is going back to literature. There's with photobiomodulation treatment, there's different levels of clinical evidence for different pathologies. For wound healing, the level of evidence is extremely high. So post-surgery and post-traumatic injury to tissue, whether it's in joints, but mostly internally, the outcomes are significantly and substantially better if you're able to treat it with this, particularly with the infrared light, because it penetrates better. And so we've got with the three devices, with the Move Plus, we've got 30 infrared lasers that are incorporated into the devices. Um, and what depending on the size of the wound, I would suggest is between 1 and 2 modules and 15 minutes twice a day, and you will see substantially decreased recovery time. It's going to do a couple of things as well. It's going to bring more blood flow to the area, and it's going to one thing that you mentioned that's really pertinent is that people don't think about how traumatic injuries are to your tissue.
Mm,
And when you see kind of microscopic close-ups of this, it's essentially like a if you imagine they have these huge cables that hold aircrafts and aircraft carriers in place when they're in dock. If you just took one of those and split it down the middle, that's what your muscles look like when they're torn. That's what traumatic damage looks like
mm,
on your cartilage, on your tissue in general. And so, one of the things that we see a lot with this is that it doesn't just affect the local tissue. The local tissue is affected in a traumatic way, but you're also going to see um, chronic, well, not necessarily chronic, but you're going to see inflammation, which can become chronic. And one of the ways that it does become chronic is that it leaks into the serum, into your bloodstream, and will reduce the
mm,
microvasculature efficacy in the entire region. And so there's things where we've been measuring. We see a lot of knee injuries, and we've been measuring. Temperature with IR cameras for quads on people who have one healthy leg and one traumatically damaged knee joint. And obviously the quads are not in the knees; they're adjacent to it, but it's in the region, and you'll see the tissue there 1 to 2 degrees lower for years after the actual traumatic damage to
mm.
the tissue in the joint. And it's because your body gets into this essentially broken microvasculature uh, method, and it can't get back out of it. And it does even with the light therapy. It takes some time. This is not one of the overnight ones where you can kind of see pain and inflammation reduction immediately for training your body. So how it works is infrared light actually reduces the affinity of nitric oxide for hemoglobin. And so when you treat an area like that, you dump a lot of nitric oxide and endothelial nitric oxide synthase in the area. Both of these expand the microvasculature, the blood vessels out, and promote more blood flow to the area. But from what we've seen with testing this, it still takes 5 to 6 weeks to train your body on how to do that, because you can increase the blood flow there for the next 24 hours, but if you stop, it's going to go back down again. And so you have to keep using that for the next 5 to 6 weeks to be able to really entrain your cardiovascular system to itself open up those blood vessels in that microvasculature and deliver the kind of healing blood and nutrients that you need in the area. But this is one of the reasons why you see so many people re-injuring joints, is because it's not just so you've had traumatic tissue damage to that tissue locally in your knee, and that's going to be weaker already. But then also the blood flow in the entire region is worse. And being able to fix that, having a tool to fix that, actually makes one big step in the right direction for not having repeated injuries in the same areas.
Yeah. So a question that I have, and I'm also certain that many listeners or viewers probably have as well, is there's conflicting evidence or research or questions around the idea of when to apply this sort of photobiomodulation to wounds. So for instance, I had my surgery Thursday, today is Sunday, and I wasn't quite sure myself, when to apply the red lights, because I have them here, right? And I could use them. I've been using PEMF therapy every single day, which I know is very good for tissue healing. But I wasn't quite sure when to apply the red lights. So I think this is probably the best person to ask. And what are your thoughts on that?
Personally, so I would show you my feet right now. I've injured my feet with my rugby game yesterday. We were talking a little bit offline about one of the nice things about you know playing contact sports. Well, one of the bad things about playing contact sports in your 40s is that you get injured, and it would typically take a lot longer to heal. But one of the nice things about making products that actually help with this is that I get back in, and I'm going to have the light all over me today, because it was just a number of dents and dings that come in from 6 games of contact rugby. Um, but yeah, today is the first day afterwards, and for open wounds, typically the you want to wait for a day or two just to have it kind of dry out and be able to um, develop some sort of scab there. But you can start treating immediately, and they actually have some literature. There's been some Chinese researchers recently who have been doing more on actually seeding with some molecules in wet wounds to keep them wet, and they promote with photobiomodulation much faster healing that way. Those are still early, so I would say that that's probably a little bit, let them get another year or two in from a testing standpoint. With that said, you can go directly in the next day to start treating. And if you do, I would say again, 2 times a day, 15 minutes would be optimal. But minimum effective dose is 5 minutes with the Move Plus. So if you are one of the things that we kind of promote, one of the reasons we made the device a 5 minute cycle is we found with our early users that if we said 15 minutes, some people are disciplined and understand how to start stacking their habits. And I'm sure you're in this camp just from knowing you, but a lot of people didn't. If we said 15 minutes a day, they would do it, once a week or maximum twice a week for 15 minutes versus every day for 5. And when you reduce that barrier to 5 minutes, that minimum effective dose still kind of gets the Pareto kind of 80-20 outcome. So what we'd like to promote is just use it as often as possible when you can for these type of things.
Beautiful. Um, just so that people can get a better understanding of what we're talking about, I'm going to share the screen for the website. But before we do that, since we're coming up on 20 minutes here, I want to do the now probably favorite part of my show, which is the Pomodoro break. And I like to allow people to offer something that they might do to break up the sedentary moments of just being still without motion, whether that's in thought or in physical body. What is something that you would do in a situation like this?
So I actually love the Pomodoro systems, and I use it when I with my mornings each day because that's typically the time of day which is so crammed and you can kind of yourself overflowing and just not getting up and moving. I do kind of dynamic stretching. Typically, if I'm doing that, there's 2 breaks for dynamic stretching and then one for my meditation, which is also something that I just have in daily. And I don't feel the same if I don't have it.
Great. Could you maybe give us an example of what
Sure.
that looks like?
So yeah, let me set this up. I got my yoga mat back here. But I'll,
Very
I'll show
cool.
you some of the ones. Actually, this came by the way from this is some dynamic stretching for the lower back. I tend to have lower back problems. I'm tall and I do a lot of deadlifts and things like this and tweak my back a bit. A member of our scientific advisory board, Marco Vandersteen, who's a physio for Premier League soccer in soccer teams in Europe, gave me a few of these kind of dynamic stretches to start doing to be able to keep essentially keep the lower back loose because we all I think and it seems like you might be standing up there, but I definitely
Yeah,
sit too much. And if you haven't adopted a standing desk, then it's something that's a big issue. So I try to work these in as much as possible to keep the lower back loose and also build in a little bit of additional strength there. So I'll just set up the camera over here.
perfect. You might have to take your headphones with you. Oh, he doesn't hear us. So Forrest is grabbing his yoga mat and he stepped back. He's now on his back with his knees up, crossing over to one side, and his hands are crossing over to the other side. And he's got the dog in the background. Cute. So, yeah, so he's on his back with his hands up towards the sky and his knees up with his feet off the ground. And we call that the dead bug position. And then he's kind of rocking side to side. So his arms go to one side, his knees go to the other side. And then he just did like a cradle rock. Um, I love how I'm giving the commentation, the color commentation here. So, um, yeah, this is good. I'm gonna signal him to let him know that that's good enough. So yeah, he's doing now an upward facing dog with rotation, and yeah, these are great because this is very necessary. We should be doing this. We should be doing this more often. Um, so yeah, that was great.
I don't know if my dog's gonna let me finish here.
Yeah, no.
She's
That was perfect. That was
okay.
perfect.
Good.
um, Yeah, so I was giving the color commentation
Okay.
because I don't think people could they couldn't hear you, and but you were showing some really cool moves there, and I love that kind of stuff because that's very much in line with my movement practice, which is getting back to like the movement milestones. And it's kind of like, if we want to relearn how to move, we have to go back to the very beginning, which
Yeah.
is, exiting the womb and, learning how to eventually walk and then run. So, yeah, very cool stuff.
I love that. I'd love to hear more about it. I know you've got the book out now, and I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm looking forward to digging in on that.
Well, I'll have this will be the first that I'm mentioning, but a week from today, I believe, a week from yesterday. Um, so by the time this comes out, the new edition of the book is going to be
Woo!
released. So,
Jazz hands,
um,
love it.
yeah, we corrected a lot of mistakes, and it's now self-published, and we added in some things that got left out. But yeah, so be ready for that. Anyway, back to
Super
you
exciting.
and the Move Plus. So I said I was going to share the screen, so I'm going to go to do that, and let's kind of oops, open some settings. Yes. Okay, so we're going to the Kineon.io. There we are. Kineon.io is the website. Let's go here. Sure, why not? All right, are you seeing this?
I am. I am.
Okay, hold on. I gotta get off of this. No, why it won't let me go in? There we go. There we go. Okay, so I'm on the website, and this is the Move Plus that Forrest and I have been talking about, and here it is on the shoulder, and you see how it's wrapped around the knee here and around the elbow. So this is what we've been talking about when we're talking about the Move Plus, and I'll let you take it from there. But I loved how you explained the ability to be able to like apply this to wounds like right away, because that's what I'm doing as soon as we finish this. So thanks for that.
No worries at all. And I think one of the fun things to note about this as well is that, and why we feel so good about the technology in the first place is that a lot of times what we're trying to replace is pharmaceuticals, and with pharmaceuticals, like you mentioned, there's a number of pieces, whether it's addiction, whether it's kind of risk of cardiovascular damage, where there's risk of neurological damage. Again, long-term NSAIDs, chronic use of NSAIDs has been linked to a number of negative impacts from a health standpoint. Um, but the side effects of the light therapy, it's all positive. You're seeing things where uh, endothelial tissue from your cardiovascular system becomes less stiff. And there has been kind of a boogeyman, for lack of a better term, of cholesterol that has been blamed. Cholesterol and saturated fats that have really been blamed with a lot of the cardiovascular impacts for stiffer arteries and things like this. Um, what it comes down to in many cases is inflammation and oxidative stress versus uh, you know kind of the saturated fat and cholesterol that have actually been blamed for it longer term. So what I do is, even when I don't have I've got a torn meniscus from my wrestling days, um, that flares up occasionally with whether it's rugby or CrossFit. They're both pretty high intensity and impact driven. So I do have a number of kind of flare ups with it. I use that for a few days to bring the inflammation back down. But when I'm not using it for kind of any specific acute inflammation or pain, I'm still using it from a habit standpoint, just to make sure that I'm as healthy as I can be, that I prolong the healthy endothelial tissue as much as I can in my body, because that's one of the things where you really see age starting to show is the inability of your body to deliver blood, and with your lungs. And it's one of the things that we've seen kind of a high correlation with COVID as well. You're starting to see those cardiopulmonary issues from people who've had the long COVID, and there's a number of studies out there. We don't really publish about these with photobiomodulation because it seems a little bit opportunistic. But there are some really positive impacts that you can have from a systemic standpoint for cardiopulmonary health as well, which is, again, I try to just keep into a habit of using it daily for 15 minutes anyway.
Which goes back to the point of what I loved you mentioned earlier about um, the point of entry, or the barrier of entry is so high with the cost of it that keeps people from not being able to do it all the time, right? So maybe compliance would be much greater, and we could all see bigger health benefits if we could get to a point where you have it, where it's essentially a clinical device at home. And if you have it, even though you might be feeling completely fine, you may as well use it, right?
Yes,
Like it's 5 minutes is the minimum effective dose, and it's like it's just a push of a button, right?
that's right.
So
That's right.
you know, yeah,
And
here it
there's only
is.
upside for you. And it's one of my drivers for developing this also, and I think for all of our core team are in a similar position is our parents. We have parents who are in their 60s and 70s, and we'd like to see them as healthy as possible. My parents are basically like, oh, that's great. Yeah, you've got the device there. I've been using one on my foot today. I've got a bruised up everything, so ankles, feet, and it's very very effective at treating edema. So if you have bruising from bruising, sprained ankles, these type of things, you'll see a much shorter recovery period as well. Yes, this is one of the things that our users asked for early. We started with a crowdfunding, so we could build a community around this. And what you've just done, where you push one button and it turns all of them on, was one of the first features that we had requested from our community. Just
I
to
love
again,
that.
thank you. We have to kind of give a shout out to our community for this because they've really been supportive of us, and we are. Once I think they realize that we are authentic and we want to be held accountable for making a world-class gold standard product. And so by kind of being able to engage them with that as an overlying or overriding theme, I think they've gotten excited about working with us because they do. It's not just us and our core product team. Our community really supports with data about their treatments, with protocol development, with field reports, images on what they're experiencing, and allows us to be able to pivot some of the protocols and treatments into more effective versions of them. And it's been extraordinarily empowering for our team to have that support from the community.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So, one thing that I was doing for the people that are only listening, I held up my Move Plus device and I clicked it into shape, and I pushed the button on one of the modules, and it lit up all three modules, which is really cool. And then inside, well, first of all, I think it's really cool. You have a nice small carry case that houses everything inside, which is pretty cool here. And then this is the charging dock, which I think is also nice and compact and really cool. And yeah, this is what we use now. Obviously, you can pop these out, and you could use one at a time, I guess, if you want, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And we have just a couple of notes on more community-based changes we have coming up. We have new straps that make it easier to use one or two and to make them closer together, and to put a long strap around your body. So if you have, for example, right now, I had lower back issues, and we were talking with some other community members who had lower back issues, and it was just not functional or convenient to put it in there. And so we've gone and spent hundreds of hours with our team redesigning the straps to be able to fix that. Because again, our goal is we feel like the most correlated things we can do from a design standpoint to achieving our goal of getting this out there to a larger audience and getting them away from pharmaceuticals and into healthier treatment modalities is reducing the friction. And so to your point, one part of that is the price. We have to keep it at a home-based product price, but still provide a clinical level outcome. You don't have to plug it in. We were lucky enough to have in our early communities some professional athletes, and they were traveling so much they wanted a case. So we have a small case. So really, there's going to be ongoing changes for these, but our goal is to make the world-class gold standard solution for photobiomodulation recovery. And we couldn't ever even approach that without the support of this community. And really, your feedback on this as well has been amazing.
Yeah, I'm loving it. A few of my clients have used it, and yeah, it's just amazing because I think when you and I first talked, like I was telling you that I used to carry around on tour all of these different panels,
Yes.
and I broke many panels in the past, and and I'm the guy that it was like I knew the research on the panels would say, 6 inches equals this, 12 inches equals this. I, in my head, in my brain, I always thought, well, why don't I just get as close to it as I can? Like that seems to make most sense, but everybody's saying not to. So, like, who wants to sit there and measure like how
Yes.
far away you are from a panel? You know, so I used to always just either lay it on me or put my feet on it or get as close as possible as I could to it, and then finally, what you created came out, and and I also have to give a shout out to FlexBeam because they also have a device that I've talked about on this show before. But then I think Move Plus is the next step because it's smaller, more compact, and it's much easier to use. In my um, experience, it's just like it's not this big mammoth thing, but it packs a powerful punch. So I think it's smart.
I appreciate it. And we know the FlexBeam guys and appreciate their approach to it as well. They actually do a better job modeling than obviously the panel. One of the things that people don't know about panels is you don't really see those in clinical trials because the dosing is just impossible to calculate. Two
Yeah.
inches forward, because of the inverse square law, essentially 2 inches forward or 2 inches back, and your dose is completely changed. And it's hard to provide positive outcomes long term if you have that kind of variability from a dosing standpoint. Where the FlexBeam guys, I think, vary from us is they have a little bit larger device, and for us, treating internal tissue for pain and neuromuscular inflammation from our models has required lasers. And to do that is more expensive, it's more sophisticated from an engineering standpoint, and it costs us a lot more time and money to go to market. But again, that was in line with our mission, which is again to move that needle from a quality of life standpoint as much as possible. And I don't see anything wrong with the FlexBeam product. Again, we know their founders, they're good guys. They actually do the homework versus just kind of launch products. Many of the products that are out there from a photobiomodulation standpoint are producer friendly, where it's how can we get a bunch of LEDs on something quickly and out to market in a cheap
Yeah.
way. The FlexBeam guys didn't do that. They did go with the LEDs only, but at least it's a skin level device, and they do certainly a better job dosing than the panel companies. Again, to your point, what we've tried to do is carry that a step further with the tens of thousands of hours we've put into a dosing model. The extra 1,000 hours it took to do a laser version and go through FDA and get all the safety clearances for the laser version was worth it for our team because it was going to move the needle more for our users. And I think that was the right decision long term.
And that beautifully answered the question I wanted to ask. I think maybe it's worth asking it anyway, but I wanted to have you point out one of the main differences between Move Plus and what you guys are doing at Kineon Labs versus some of the other very popular ones. And we don't have to ever, name the popular products because people know what they are. But you addressed that, and I mean, feel free to expand on it. But basically, your product is LEDs and lasers, as
That's
opposed to
correct.
just LEDs. I think it's a big thing worth harping on because that's where your research comes from.
That's right. That's right. And if we found that with our models from a dosing standpoint, that if we wanted to be able to deliver the correct doses and do that consistently, we had to include lasers. And again, it was a big decision for us because as a young company, we had to raise more money for it. We had to take longer time. The engineering again was more sophisticated to put together. We had to add additional regulatory on. There's more regulatory that you have to go through when you have lasers. It was just a more difficult, more expensive product to launch this way. Um, But I think that comes back to one thing that's really core and key for us is accountability. We build in a physiology lead with our product teams, and what they are um, responsible for is building in feedback loops of physiological data, physiological measurable metrics for delivering either in some cases it is kind of heuristics versus direct measurables of what we'd like to be measuring because there's just not the sensors or the blood work over 1,000 people would be too much to go do. But in these cases, we've actually found some really awesome ways with innovative companies out there to do this from new sensors that are being developed. So we try what we try to do though is build in accountability for ourselves to deliver the outcomes that we're saying. Because it's one thing to take a product and build it to what's best in class kind of assumptions from a light characteristic standpoint, but at that point in time, you're still kind of guessing that you're
Mhm.
delivering what you want to be delivering. Where we want to be able to measure that and be accountable for it. And again, that's where we've our community supported us with this feedback, and we found some very innovative ways with our physiology team and our scientific advisory board for using kind of next generation sensors for being able to measure the impacts that we can make, and that makes us much more comfortable in going out and making a strong claim about what we can do and being confident in what we're selling.
So we have so we've got the Move Plus, right? We've talked about when we can use it, like directly on wounds and kind of what time frame. You addressed that beautifully. We talked about using it for chronic issues and making sure to use it even after these issues may be healed or corrected. um, let's now talk about and discuss some situations in which this may not be good or it may not be used, or what population would this be a contraindication for?
So we have some specified contraindications for use in the area of cancer, um, and this is more, I think, just over like there's not really any major risk from that. This is just kind of a regulatory requirement for us, and the same thing with pregnant women in the area of the stomach during pregnancy. And yes, and then the lasers also. So, and this is one again. All of this is kind of regulatory tick box stuff from a contraindication standpoint. The medical literature doesn't really show any increased risk for it, but there is a regulatory requirement if you have lasers in a product to not point this at your genitals. So with
Mm,
that said, we have some friends in the biohacker community who have been interested in treating their Leydig cells for increased testosterone production, and again, we can't specifically promote that because it's because of the regulatory around the lasers. The lasers, the reason we have a number of lasers, the number of lasers in here we do is because the dispersal is optimized with that, but it also reduced the risk because each of these lasers is 5 milliwatts, which is not a huge amount of power, and so there's not a real risk in that from a measurable physiological standpoint, but the FDA just doesn't like people pointing lasers at their genitals. So
right.
fair enough.
Fair enough. Right. Fair enough. And what about um, epilepsy, or do the lasers or the LEDs affect anybody with epilepsy that you know of?
We haven't specified this as a contraindication, but from just from my own personal reading on this, that should be something where if you have epilepsy, pointing these at your eyes is not ideal. This is 35 hertz is the optimal physiological uptake for your body from a pulsing standpoint, which is essentially 35 pulses per minute. Um, which is visible from the naked eye. And from my own personal reading in the space, I believe it's anything under 80 or 90 hertz can be triggering for certain types of epilepsy.
Got it. And that also kind of leads me to another question, which I think you'd be great to answer. Is you sort of alluded to the fact that people could do this by looking into the lights. When not is that a good thing to do?
So typically, you wouldn't want to look into light unless you're trying to treat something specific. And we'd like to be able to have, if you're in contact with us and we can help build a protocol for you. There are a couple of pathologies like macular degeneration and dry macular degeneration in specific, because there's a couple of different variations of that that have been effectively treated with photobiomodulation, but we have not built out protocols for that yet. We haven't had anybody contact us about that, and I do know that there are very good professional clinical products in the market for that. So, there's other ways to go about that, but we're happy to build a protocol for someone if they would like to. But yeah, the one of our clinical or medical kind of level competitors, which that does a very good job in specing and building their products, called Thor. Actually makes they've got a spin-off company that makes macular degeneration devices.
Interesting. Yeah, I know Thor, or I mean, the group or the company. Yeah, that's cool. So what's in the pipeline? Because it sounds like this mighty mouse of a device can help with a lot of things. My mind goes bigger, more, better. Like, can you put this on your head, like to stimulate brains? What's in the pipeline?
So I think you've nailed it with the first one. Is transcranial photobiomodulation is a big thing for us, and we've been doing a lot of hours in this with our physiology and product teams over the past year. These devices, we're actually, our product team right now is working on some new straps for being able to apply this to your head, because we're going to be doing some trials with uh, a number of different athletes who have brain impact on a daily basis. So whether that's MMA or NFL or rugby, what we'd like to be able to do is there's extremely high level of evidence for being able to reduce the impacts of traumatic brain injury, and even just vibrations on your brain long term can trend you higher probability for CTE. And we
Mm.
really we want to be able to support these guys as early as we can. So we're going to be doing tests with these devices and specific protocols that will be set for this. But again, to our earlier point around right now, what we can do with these, we know we can have an impact with these at a sweet spot dose. What we can't do very effectively with this yet is put our physiological feedback loop in to be able to optimize that, and that's what we're going to be doing with our next product in 2023, is building in a sensor-based feedback loop for a new module platform that will work for transcranial photobiomodulation. So it's going to be exciting times.
Wow. 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 Yeah, that's really cool. So, okay, we'll be looking forward to that, and obviously, let me know because I would love to, help out in any way I can with any of that, and then of course, would love to have you back on when you're ready to talk about that more in depth. That would be amazing.
Absolutely. If you're interested, we'll get you in the beta group. It's So there's we're going to have protocols for a few things. There's a number of things, and it's super interesting. And I think this will be right up your alley, because I know you're big into kind of mitochondria and metabolic health. Um,
Yeah.
I remember your shirt from last time,
Yep.
uh, mitochondriac. The a number of pathologies from a neurological standpoint are metabolically based, or at least have a metabolic component. And a couple of these that we see that are so widespread right now are anxiety and depression. There's
Mm.
great cognitive benefits we can target for it as well, but cognitive benefits will be essentially one of the treatment protocols that we develop with this new device. Two that we're extremely excited about though are anxiety and depression, and I think you can guess why. It's essentially because they marry very well with our mission of helping people improve their quality of life. And pain is one thing that keeps people in kind of a, pain can put you in a downward spiral. You find high levels of depression in people with osteoarthritis because they can't move as much, because they can't go out and kind of enjoy the movement patterns and life they have before. And I think that's one of the reasons why we find pain so powerful to be able to treat with our neuromuscular pain and inflammation devices with the Move Plus. But depression and anxiety are like the mental version of that. It's you find yourself in a hole, and if you can't find something to push you back up into a positive spiral, that just goes down. That just continues to go down, and they're really difficult for the people who are, and really have a huge impact on the quality of life for the people who have who have these kind of symptoms. So, for us, with our mission being to improve quality of life for the largest number of people we can, we feel there's a huge gap and a huge opportunity for doing that with the brain, because it's just the center of so much.
Wow. Yeah, that's well said. I think it's easy for people to understand because when you get to a point where you can't move, like again, just my 1 or 2 days of recovering and having limited movement with my hernia procedure, I could see like yesterday. I was so thankful that I felt well enough to be able to go to the grocery store. Because like
Yes.
and I forgot who it was I was talking to. I think it was my mom, probably my mom or someone. And she was like, "Wow, why are you going to the store?" And then I'm like, because I need to get out and get some fresh air. Like this is quality of life. And so what you said really touched me like in a special way because I'm just experiencing that.
Yes.
And so the importance to be able to allow people to do more of that, that's where you get to helping a greater amount of people. And that's why we do what we do.
That's right. That's right. And we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna keep you in if you're interested in doing the beta program.
Yes.
We'd love to kind of go through that process with you, because it's you've been in this literature a long time. You spent a lot of time researching in this, and we really value your input for this. So, if you don't mind, we'd love to have you in for it. It's going to be a super exciting, again, between cognitive benefits and kind of the impacts we can have for people who have more negative. So for myself, I'm looking at it from a cognitive benefit standpoint, but from our team and our mission, we're looking at it for how do we bring those people in and help them where, like you said, if it's, if it's, if an injury or a surgery can do already have this much of an impact, can you imagine having to live on a daily basis with, no energy and no ability to kind of get yourself up and moving and go take that trip to the store, which is a position that a lot of people with depression find themselves in.
Yep.
It's just a really unfortunate condition, and we have a tool that can help this in a major way. So we're going to be going 100% all out this next year to make that happen.
Definitely. And yeah, definitely include me in on the group because it sounds amazing. And I may even have a few other people that I could direct you to that might help out in a
That'd be great.
major way. Yeah, because again, it's all about getting the most we can out of all of this. Um, okay, so before we go into the last couple of questions, is there anything else that you would like to mention that we haven't already talked about in terms of what you're doing, what you want out of the out of all this work?
Really, it's just been great to be able to be on this journey and connect with awesome people like yourself. What I think you said earlier about how you kind of bring in the energy that you put out, and we found that it's been just awesome to be able to connect with people where there's a positive um, there's a positive energy, but it's also an energy that wants to impact the people around them positively. And what you're doing with your publications and with your training, it's amazing to see, and we just love to kind of be in contact with that kind of energy.
I love it. Yeah, I definitely think it's important to build tribes, and it doesn't always mean that we all agree on the exact same thing, but one thing we can agree on is to work together to do the best for everyone. And when you can strip back all the BS. You can strip back like the ego of things, then and you can kind of look at it as this universal one being. It really starts to uncover what's really important, and I see that with the people that I connect myself with, and I want to say I feel like I'm a good judge of character, and a lot of the times it's because I'm willing to see what's behind the surface. So thank you for being included in that, my friend. So
Really appreciate you bringing us in. It's
yeah,
just awesome on both sides. I think. I hope.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I've kind of prepped you for this, but you didn't have a lot of time to prep. So I asked two questions at the end of the show. First question is, what are your top two pet peeves?
Top two pet peeves is I think this came up a little bit earlier with some of the products that we see out in the market. I don't like the lack of accountability that people take with what they do. I don't like commercial only things, and it's a pet peeve to see promises being made, to see snake oil being sold, when that doesn't just affect the people who are on the poor side of the snake oil kind of salesman. It affects everyone else who now has a fear of different types of modalities of treatment, of trying new things because they've been fooled or tricked. And we find a lot of our older cohort that we interact with is very, very sensitive to that right now. They've been targeted for these type of things, and it's really a pet peeve of mine, because for companies like us who are out trying to do the right thing and provide an accountable result for what we've promised, it makes it much more difficult because everyone's skeptical now, and it's right to be skeptical, but like the level of fear and anxiety that you see in these guys for adopting this type of thing or even trying it is it's been built in by people who are irresponsible and not accountable for what they're making, and that's a pet peeve of mine.
Wow. Yeah, I feel that. I mean, like from a very deep perspective, I feel that, but I can also like tangibly see, that gets under your skin for sure. Um, is there another one that you have?
That's a good question. I generally I'm pretty okay. I think yeah, overstating what you do basically is, and that's kind of a restatement of what we just said. But like people who are out over their skis a little bit, live within in what you should be doing and what you can do, and hold yourself accountable for that. So I guess those two things are married. Is be accountable for what you should be doing, and then say and communicate within your capabilities.
I love it. Okay. Um, so now my favorite question: what is something you're most grateful for?
I think it's been the ability to. I wake up now. I'm excited to go to work. I'm excited to work with the people I work with. I'm excited to come on and talk to awesome people like you. It's the tribe and I think you nailed it with the word tribe. The tribe and the energy that we've been building around what we're doing, and that continues to grow. And that's it makes work a joy to go to every day. It makes the discussions we have meaningful. It makes the decisions we make meaningful, and it makes outcomes for people around us better. We've helped thousands already. It's our first year of business. We've already helped thousands of people get away from pharmaceuticals and start living a healthier, more free life with their movement, and that's just been so empowering. And I think we join with this energy awesome people like yourself, and it just makes the journey even better.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for that. What is the best way for people to learn more about the company, about the product, and about you in particular?
So you can go to Kineon, Kineon.io, and you can see more about the product. Also, at one of the things that we've been doing for the past 6 months or so, is my partner and I, one of our co-founders, have kind of put our Calendlies out there, and just if you want to. And we're gonna, I think, be adding office hours to that. So if you stay posted to our site, we should have that up. But essentially, we've made our time available to anyone who is a product user and is having a great or having a terrible experience with it. We want to know about that. And so, we're here to be able to support. We're not selling a product just to sell a product. We want you to really find relief for the pain and inflammation that you have. And if people can reach out to us and put a meeting on the calendar, we're happy to jump on. We'd love to interact with as many people as we can to help them with this journey away from pain.
Yeah, and I'll link to that on the show notes as well. So if you share that with me, I'll put it on the show notes so you guys can go and see that directly. You're on social media. What is the handle at on social media?
I believe it's Kineon_labs.
I think that's right. Yeah, Kineon. I'll link to that as well. And then we also, for all the people who like to get a discount, we do have a discount code that the folks at Kineon and Mr. Smith have allowed for you guys to get a discount, and that code is JHolland. JHolland. And I don't. What does that get them? Do you know?
That's 10%, and we are actually starting our Black Friday sales this week as well. So that 10% is in addition to our Black Friday sales. So you guys get the best deal that's pretty much ever existed on these devices, which is which is awesome. We'd love to have them in your
Wow.
hands.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm gonna work on getting this out right away so that when people hear this, they will be able to take advantage of that, which is really awesome. Thanks for that. And yeah, if any of you listening or watching have any questions for Forrest or anybody at the company or even for myself, don't hesitate to reach out. And I definitely will be doing a lot more content around how I use mine, and I'll probably do some before and after photos with my my surgical wounds with this as well. So
Please keep us posted. We'd
yeah.
love to see how that goes for you.
Yeah, cool. Okay, well, this is Josh signing out from Simply Walk the Talk. Thanks for your time. Forrest, have a great day. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Walk the talk, talking facts. Move like me, but I move a little fast. Make my move, here to last. Fasten these seat belts, I'm coming past. Take care of me, longevity. Hack my biology, better believe. Walking the talk, soul, mind, and body connected. Better come give us a listen. Better come give us a minute or two. Open the box up, we giving you tools. Giving your engine the fuel that it needs. Breathing into it, it's autoimmune. Make a connection, we're stronger in two. Making us one of a kind of a few. Work on the mind, but show me your moves. If you do what you say, you know what to do. Yeah.
Simply walk the talk.